It's another Manly Monday, and this Manly Monday, we're going to talk about the criticism spiral. But first, a disclaimer. I am not saying women never do this. I've experienced women who do this recently, but this is in a particular lens of how it affects men uniquely, because there is a different different series of social norms regarding men in suffering, men in risk, men in danger. And so I am talking about what I've called the criticism spiral in that lens. I'm not saying women don't do this. I'm just saying it functions differently, and men deserve to be centered. And the reason I have to do this is that too many people are going to watch this video and think, well, she's saying women never do that, because you're hearing criticism when it is actually centering the male experience. And that's because our brains are often attuned to criticism. If you have been trained to be attuned to criticism, you can retrain your brain to be attuned to some other sort of primary stimulus. And it takes work. So let's get into it. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/LeannaK. There's a link in the description box below if you want your own Leanna Care session. And please like and subscribe to the channel if you like this content. Big breath. Okay, so I have noticed that there is a subsection of guy who criticizes to be useful or helpful, and it tends to backfire. And the guy doesn't understand what's going wrong, because this is just like, everybody learn to handle criticism. It's funny because that I got that for years. Learn to handle criticism. And now guys tell me I'm too rough. It's like, I have heard you're dishing it out, you can't take it. And there's a fundamental error in assumption of, I heard guys going, I like criticism. No, you like feedback. You like something useful that you can learn from, right? That isn't criticism necessarily. It certainly isn't an insult, because constructive feedback tells you what you did right as well as what you did wrong. Because if all you're hearing is what you did wrong, you might think you're improving by not doing that wrong thing again, but you may just be spinning in a circle. Because if all you're responding to is the negative feedback, well, every time somebody tells you, ew, no, well, you're going to have to stop doing that. And because these sorts of things are so highly objective, you are going to run out of things that are acceptable to do. And that is how a lot of men feel. They feel profoundly stifled. They don't know how to express their views and not get jumped on. They don't know how to express a difference of opinion without worrying very much about another person's reactions. And both people are responsible for that. You can be aware of how you're coming across and adapt accordingly, but some people are going to hear things you don't say. It happens to me every time I make a video, and you're not responsible for that. People say, yes, you are. You have to learn to, no. It's Dita Von Teese thing. You can be the sweetest peach on the vine, and somebody don't like peaches, okay? You can't do a video like this that anybody can watch and tailor the message to everyone. You just can't. Hence me saying this is about men, not the dumb shit women sometimes get up to. And there is... Nobody likes being criticized. If you believe you do, then you have internalized abuse. Feedback, yeah. Like, this isn't so great. Here's how to do it better. That's helpful. That's actionable, right? But, oh, this is just shit. This is garbage. You're shit. You're garbage. Nobody likes that. You may not care, but the only time you actively like something like that is like, I will calibrate certain content where it's like, yeah, if this type of person gets pissed off, I'm doing it right. Because those aren't the people I'm looking to reach. Like, I'm not looking to reach radical feminists on Manly Monday. Right? So if somebody comes here saying, Andrea Dworkin says you're wrong. Yeah. But does that feel good? No, because that is somebody showing up to piss in the punch bowl. So there might be a little bit of a, all right, properly calibrated. That's good. It's not a positive interaction, right? And saying, I enjoy criticism, you're just lying to yourself. And the problem with that is that if you are not aware of how criticism hurts you, you are not picking up when you are being unnecessarily critical or ineffectively critical, or saying things in a way that are going to make people stop listening to you and not want you around, right? And I hear from a lot of guys that this is their worst fear. And then they offer helpful feedback. And it's like, oh dear. And they are just responding to the way people talk to them. And they were told this is the way of the world, toughen up. And that is not their fault. It is something you can do something about to attract people who will treat you well, instead of continuing to attract people who are abusing you and saying it's for your own good. Because somebody who has your best interest at heart can say something good about what you did and also suggest improvements, or say, look, I don't know how to fix this. I just know that, these are the issues. Let's find somebody who can. It was interesting because recently someone I used to do like editing and stuff like that for, that I worked, who was horridly critical of me, to the point that would redo my work and not tell me what the problem was. I just complained to me recently about somebody else only telling them what they did wrong on a job instead of things that they did right as well. And I was sitting here thinking, okay, karma. But I said, yeah, that's not fun. I didn't bring it up. I didn't think it was worth it. What would it do? Like, that's just an I told you so, and that's shitty. But it is funny of how unself-aware so many people are about what they're dishing out. And you can't be perfectly self-aware. I'm not saying that. But if you practice being actively positive, or actively focusing on directing the flow of water or directing traffic, right? So you can't just block off a street and create a traffic jam when you're responding to somebody. You have to give things a direction to flow, or you're just stopping things dead, and that's not good for anybody. And I've been particularly struck by the messages from, like, I work with a few, young Black men. And, I want to, I reach out to certain members of the community because I'm like, I want to make sure I'm doing this right. And every single one of them is like, well, if I talk to him, it's going to be brutal. I'm going to be hard on him. He needs his ass kicked. He needs a smack in the head. And, talking to these young men, no, I don't actually think that's what they need. The reason they need a coach is because they've been kicked in the head plenty. And there's a way to say, oh, maybe not. Or are you sure? Without kicking the guy in the head. And there are other guys I work with who are white guys who similarly seem to have been exposed to this, a kick in the head's good for, that's how men learn. And the science doesn't say that. The science says structure, not punishment, right? Like blocking someone isn't the same as kicking them in the head. Saying, no, you can't do that is not the same. Boom, what you do, right? And I get tough love. I've been mocked for believing that tough love is appropriate sometimes. Because sometimes the choices are between enabling and tough love, and you have to choose tough love, right? But tough love is still love. It's not, let's just make this person miserable because I know better for them than they do. For me, tough love is something that when someone is in a more lucid moment has told me, don't let me do this or call me on my crap, and then they're having disordered thinking and I'm following their instructions from when they were lucid and they really don't like that and they've forgotten they told me that when they were lucid. So, it sucks sometimes. But I care enough about them to do what they asked me to do. And if they blow up, it's like, all right, yep, I'm out because this is not cool. And I think because there's this belief that men are tough, right, in a way that women aren't. And I get into this a lot because I'm pretty tough. And I have to sort of go, okay, what I can take, just because I can't take it doesn't mean I like it, so let's not make that the benchmark. And I know that most people can't take what I take, so I'm not going to do that. I think sometimes the most profound thing that men can experience is someone showing them kindness. And I think that the whole women as refuge or even women as reward, I don't think it's women as reward, quite frankly, trope. I think it's women's approval or woman's attention as reward, which is a very different thing. But I think the reason that men kind of fantasize about that is not because they wouldn't like approval from men too. They just think it ain't gonna happen. That isn't the way the world works. And that's not something that's derogatory to women. It's how you go about the men's expert I interviewed for It's Not Therapy recently said, it's better if you earn it. And I really believe that. That's the structure part, right? Like if people are just giving it to you, a part of you knows, But if you try and it doesn't work and you get a chance to try again and you do it and you're improving and you're building and eventually you get it, that's when it feels really good, But you are not going to get there if you are just stuck in a criticism spiral. That takes you down. That causes pain. That makes you feel like no one cares because your own self-talk is so brutal that no positives, no reassurances, no affirmations, no validations get through because you think, oh, they're just being nice. Because you can't think that about yourself. The reason some people leave shitty comments, negative comments on every goddamn video I make, except, the odd day where it's like, oh, I guess they had nothing to complain about here. But they do that because their own self-talk is negative, I don't think they even realize they're being rude or negative or critical or, just frankly not on topic because that's the inside of their head all the time. And you don't need to do that. It is scientifically not making you better. It is making you more discouraged. It is damaging your personal relationships. It is damaging your professional relationships. And it is sapping your energy. Instead, you don't have to think everything you do is great. Just focus on the things you're doing that you think are pretty good and work towards that. Prioritize, play to your strengths. Working on your weaknesses is great. I do it, but that gets discouraging and it gets draining. And every so often I have to step back into, okay, how do I use what I'm good at to train, to improve the stuff I'm not good at? Because if you don't have that stake for the tomato plant to grow up, then it's just going to fall on the floor and rot, right? You need that structure. Boys and men need structure, not roughness, right? You may not, if you are a guy who fantasizes about kindness, who fantasizes about women being nice to you, even in a platonic way, you are far from alone. And that is a perfectly okay thing to want. Do not let tropes versus women fool you. The issue comes up when you're expecting it, like that's a woman's job, as opposed to it being sort of, if she can, she will. But there's gotta be a give and take, right? And if you don't know how to be kind and complimentary in an honest way, not just to get sex, you're not going to receive it, because it has to be reciprocal. Or the woman that is giving you that boost is going to be profoundly lonely and not tell you because you're going to criticize her if she does. And that is the thing. You got to give to get. And you lose nothing by being kind. You lose nothing paying an honest compliment. And there is a big difference between appreciating a person as a person and fetishizing them as an object. You know, that's why I objecting hot, right? Like it's purely physical. It's not they're a nice person. It's the difference between you are beautiful and hey bitch, nice tits, right? Like they're very different statements, right? If a woman responds to hot, she's not gonna be someone who is likely going to be providing that nurturing you're looking for. She is going to be someone who, hot is expensive and time consuming. And so a woman like that, you are going to be expected to finance her hot. You want that? Be my guest. I don't recommend it because, again, you're not going to be receiving the emotional support, the emotional closeness that a deep, meaningful relationship provides. She's going to be spending all her time on her looks because that was the expectation you set by going after hot, you know. The other thing that we've had to kind of moderate on the forums is the difference between going, you know, oh, wow, she's pretty, and I'll be in my bunk as a masturbation reference. Like, no one wants to think, okay, some dude's whacking off. I mean, guys, the problem with that is, as somebody who's been there, I know I'm old and ugly and nobody wants to fuck me anymore. Thanks, Hassan Piker. Fuck you. No, really, no, I wouldn't. Not in a million years. But when I was a model, guys tried to intimidate me by sending pictures of, they printed out a picture of me, ejaculated on it, and took a photo and sent it to me on social media. And I was so detached because, oh God, the number of times that happened. Guys try to menace with informing you that they are shamelessly using you as a sex object. And my attitude is that is all about them and not about me. Because, honey, that job, I was a comedian. I was just doing it on a hard mode and, doing the pinup shit because that was the job. But first and foremost, my job was comedy. So that's nice. What's wrong with you? And when you are announcing that you are using someone as spank material, you're pretty much announcing that you are not interested in them as a person. Because if you were interested in them as a person, you'd express interest in them as a person, right? And that doesn't mean, I think it's very important that people talk frankly about what they find attractive, what they're looking for, things like that, because I think it's important for people to know that the diversity of preference is far larger. It's far more diverse than the media portrays. What your average guy's idea of a beautiful woman is not the very narrow thing that, Hollywood and video games present. And that's not political. That's just true. And even if it wasn't, does that mean that every guy who is involved with a woman who doesn't look like that is settling? Well, if you don't want the woman who eventually becomes your partner to believe that, because she will if you're espousing those attitudes. And, that means you're only going to attract people with low self-esteem who are, okay, he's settling, but I'm not going to do any better. No man's going to accept me. No man wants that. Like, I have to look like, Lune from Claire Obscure for men to want me, And that was done in the Belle Epoque era, and that was not the beauty standard in the Belle Epoque era. That shit changes. And if you want a woman or a man to believe that you are legitimately attracted to them and not just putting up with them until you get a better offer, then your opinions on stuff have to be inclusive of them as someone beautiful. And if your idea of beautiful is an anime character, you're not sending that message, Just think about what you're doing. Don't be critical because you think it's manly. Don't posture regarding what you find beautiful because you're afraid of being called weird. Trust me, women love weird. Don't let anyone fool you. Women freaking love weird. Look at what's his name, Pete Davidson. Right? Women love weird. The weirder the dude, women still throw themselves at Kanye West, right? Women love weird. Don't be afraid to be weird. But fly your weird flag, right? And appreciate other people's weird. Appreciate stuff. Find joy. You will have to change nothing else about yourself than that. And you will immediately become more attractive to the people, both platonically and not platonically, around you, because nobody wants to be around a human criticism spiral. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/Leanna K, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, coffee.com/Leanna K. Sign up for a Leanna Care session for yourself if you want. Link is in the description box below. And like and subscribe to this channel if you like this content. Thanks for watching Manly Mondays.